Kroger Delivery has one mission: to deliver the freshest food right to your door. That's why our drivers are pros. Our trucks are refrigerated. And when it comes to low prices, we always deliver. With $20 off your first order of $75 or more, there's no better time to get in on the action. Mission accomplished. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
We may live over 5,000 miles from Lincoln Financial Field, but what we lack in proximity, we make up for in film study. And each and every week, we'll be bringing you in-depth film breakdowns from across the pond and the Sooner State. Welcome to On the Shane page. I am your host, Shane Haff, and you can follow me on Twitter at ShaneHaffNFL. I'm also joined by BGN's own film guru, Jonny Page. Give him a follow on Twitter at JohnnyPage9. Jonny, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good, Shane. The Eagles won. The Eagles smashed the Cowboys, which is always good fun. I'm going to start with a random point. I haven't got any holiday stories this week, Shane, so I haven't got any lovely holiday stories to talk about. So I'm just going to start with, firstly, is Cooper Rush the worst quarterback you've ever seen on the All-22? And secondly, how bad is Trey Lance? Because they didn't even play him properly. The 49ers gave up 3 first-round picks for that guy, Shane. Like, Cooper Rush didn't have an arm. Like, the ball wasn't going anywhere. Some of the checkdowns were like, oh my God, the ball's just not there. Like, you could get basically anyone off the street that's got a better arm than him, and he can't run. So it's like, how bad is Trey Lance?
Yeah.
There we go. Like, genuinely, I was watching that game on the All-22, and the D played really well, but I struggled to take too much away from certain things because they're not a professional team with the quarterbacks they've currently got. There you go.
Yeah, at the point that you're where you are now, I don't know how you're not just playing Trey Lance. Like, yeah, I could see if Dak's out a game or two and you're in contention, and Cooper Rush has won some games there before, but he's just not a good quarterback. And I mean, Trey Lance, it's not like Trey Lance did much either. And I know he had the preseason game where he threw, I think it was 5 interceptions, but at this point you just have to give the guy reps. That's one thing. The Eagles go overboard sometimes in this. And, you know, when you win a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback, you're going to tend to take it more seriously than you should at some point, because that's unreasonable to expect to like win a Super Bowl with your quarterback out. But you do need to be able to survive a month if your quarterback's out. And I haven't always agreed with how the Eagles have gone about it. I think they've overinvested at times, but I do at least appreciate that the Eagles would not have to trot Cooper Rush out there if Jalen Hurts was going to miss a couple games. Say what you will about Kenny Pickett or even Tanner McKee, but at least there would be something worth watching.
Tanner McKee is definitely better, and I've barely even watched him in the regular season, but I would take that all day long. At least have upside, man. Like, at least have someone that can win you. I always think you're better shooting all the stars. That's why I think Jameis Winston would be like the ideal backup for everyone, because if you have to play him for a month, you'll win 2, lose 2. Perfect. That's the dream, the absolute dream. Get me a backup that can just win a couple of games. But anyway, let's start talking about backup quarterbacks. I just had to mention that because honestly, watching the film was weird, like very, very weird. But anyway, how are you, Shane? I never reply. You ask me how I am. I never reply. How is everything in your life at the moment?
You know, I'm doing good. It's been a crazy week with the short week. My kids were also out of school on Monday, and so trying to cram everything in to get this show out today with the kids being out of school was certainly interesting. I'm going to miss some of the other Pinpool Network shows tonight because it's my son's last baseball game of the season. We're in the playoffs and frankly playing a team that is going to smoke us. So this will be the last game, but it was supposed to be last Thursday. It got rained out, messed up my podcasting schedule, but it'll be nice to have that in the rearview mirror. And we did summer ball. We did spring ball, summer ball, and fall ball, like back to back to back. So I'm ready for just a little bit of a break from coaching and being at baseball all the time. But it's been fun. I'm certainly not complaining. It's been a lot of fun, but I am ready to just slow down just a little.
Yeah, short weeks don't do us any favors, do they? For those wondering, obviously Tuesday, short week will probably be Tuesday next week as well with the Thursday night game. Yeah, short weeks just aren't fun for basically anyone that covers the NFL. Although Thursday's game is going to be awesome, so that is going to be fun. But except for that, dreading short weeks. Right, let's get into it. I'm not even going to ask you, Shane, where we're starting. You're not going to ask me. We're going to do offense first because the defense is just not worth spending anywhere near as much time on as the offense. Because the Cowboys defense is actually competitive and has some very good players. I was pretty impressed, actually, with the Cowboys defense overall. So I thought it was a proper challenge for the Eagles offense, and we can't say the same about the Cowboys offense. So where do we want to begin? Do you want to go first?
Sure. I'll kick us off here, and we're going to play the blame game, which is a great way to start a podcast. But Jalen Hurts took 5 sacks in the game. And so we're just going to play the blame game and talk about what went wrong on every sack, and we're going to assign blame. And Jonny, this is a multiplayer game, so you can chime in here too. So
what are we ranking? Like blame on Hurts, blame on Kellen Moore. What's the deal?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can go down to like design, individual players, and down to Hurts holding onto the football. So basically, I just want to say, is this a Hurts issue, a protection issue, or a design issue?
I like it.
On this first one, I'm going to submit to you that this is a Hurts issue because at the top of the screen, the Eagles have trips, and you're going to get Devontae Smith running this out route. It's not like the most open out route you've ever seen. He's running against there's outside leverage from the cornerback, but I just think this ball should come out. It's where he's looking. I just think if that ball's out now, I don't think that the cornerback can break on it. And so it is a bit of a dangerous throw to throw an out route against a corner that's an outside leverage that's not really threatened vertically. I just think you trust Devontae Smith as a route runner in this situation, and you put the ball on him. I will say, I am happy to see that he scrambles up, and I think from the back view, you can see he thinks there's a lane to run here, and I think that's part of why he doesn't throw it, perhaps, and he thinks there's a lane to run, and he just ends up getting into traffic and he's sacked. But I do appreciate he runs up through the pocket. It becomes a 5-yard loss instead of scrambling out of the back and it becoming a 13-yard loss. 2nd and 15 is certainly doable. 2nd and 25 is not really. But to me, that one's on Hurts. I think you have to pull the trigger on that.
Yeah, this is like me marking my own homework because I've also got my notes for every sack. So I can't lie on the podcast because anyone can just go and check the tweet. So I put it on Hurts as well. I said he had Devontae Smith on an out route and the ball could have come out, in my opinion. I wonder how much the coaches tell him, like, if it's not wide open, don't always throw it because of your mobility. But I agree. I would put this one on Hurts as well.
Okay, so let's go to the second one. This is a 2nd and 20, which is never a good place to find yourself in. And the Cowboys load up the line of scrimmage. And they did this a lot. They've got 7 guys across the line of scrimmage here. And this one, Kenny Gainwell just misses his block, just totally whiffs, and Hurts is out running. There's not much you can do on that one. I'm putting this one entirely on protection and looking from the back view. So what's going on here is Cam Jurgens is sliding to the right. We can talk a little bit about pass protection here. Cam Jurgens is sliding to the right, which means that there's 2 linemen and Kenny Gainwell to block 3 guys on the left. And I would like to see Landon Dickerson's guy just drops out immediately, right? I would like to see Dickerson, instead of going to help on Micah Parsons, who's already being chipped, I would like to see him help on Gainwell's guy. Like, I would be more concerned about a guy coming one-on-one against Kenny Gainwell than I would a guy fighting through a chip and Fred Johnson. And I know it's Micah Parsons, and Kenny Gainwell needs to do a better job. I would like to see Dickerson play that a little better too, but that one's entirely on protection for me.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to do, Shane, is I'll combine my first point here as well, just because it fits in nicely. My first point is the Eagles had a lot of issues dealing with what we call double mug looks in this game. Now, anyone that's ever followed NFL scheme stuff for the past few years knows Mike Zimmer absolutely loves this stuff. Like, this is Zimmer's game. So I was a little disappointed the Eagles seemed a bit off against it consistently. Normally double mug, you have 2 linebackers lined up over the A-gap. And it's a very risk-reward style strategy because what it often leads to as a defense is you can't really play much too high because then you've got no one else in the middle of the field at all. So it lends itself to a lot of single high, which we saw from the Cowboys. And it also means that you have defenders literally sprinting back off the snap. So you do have chances to throw it over their heads. And actually, this is a nice nice little bit of sequencing by myself, because I think the fourth sack Hurts takes, you're going to see Devontae Smith have a chance at a deep route because one of the Cowboys guys is running back. I think the Eagles basically were guilty this game of taking too many deep shots. Shock. We'll never say that again, Shane. I think they knew they were going to get single high coverage against the double mug looks, and I think they basically decided they were going to take their shots against them rather than get into any quick game. And that one in particular is a good example. Like, I think Dickerson is almost, and I'm not a O-line guy, so I'd have to have someone properly explain it to me, but I think Dickerson was like too focused on what he was supposed to do and not really just playing the play out. Like, he can see his guy drop immediately. Like, the second he sees his guy drop, I would love to see him to help out. Like, a couple of comments coming in as well saying Hurts from Mike on YouTube saying he was better at climbing the pocket last week. He took a step back. I think he took a step back in the first half. I think he was really good in the second half. I'm also going to make a really big excuse for Hurts later on, which when we get to sack 3 and sack 4 and 5, which Shane is laughing because he knows what I'm going to talk about, because I think there is a legitimate issue here that I don't think is a joke, and I'm going to explain why. But yeah, I think in general, it wasn't just the pass game, by the way. The Eagles struggled with double mug looks. I think they struggled in the run game massively. Cam Jurgens really, really struggled. Like I've never seen him struggle before, actually. And I wrote this in my Offensive Bleeding Green article, which for once is actually out before the podcast. So some of you very keen readers may have read it. And I mentioned that every team is now going to do this. If I'm game planning for the Eagles next week, if I'm Washington maybe haven't got time to put in new packages. But if I'm a team that has somewhere in my playbook to run a lot of double mug looks, I am testing the Eagles out early and often, because it stopped the Eagles running game from working very well. And it also caused them a lot of protection issues. Sometimes they had the running back one-on-one. Sometimes they managed to get the center to pick up the free rusher. But it was all just a bit random, and it didn't feel very consistent to me. So that's going to be my first point anyway. So it lends itself quite nicely. I'll let you carry on with the blame game, but sack 2 is definitely not on Jalen Hurts. That is absolutely on protection and on Gainwell individually, as well as maybe Dickerson to a lesser extent.
All right. Well, let's get on to the third sack then. And this one, I kind of hate the route concepts because you're going to open to the front side and you get like the out route with a curl route and a corner route. And I've talked about this on this podcast before. If that curl route is a vertical route, then you have a 3-level stretch. But as it is, I just don't feel like you're putting people into conflict. And you're going to see Hurts try to go from front side to back side. And on the back side, you have a curl route and a comeback route. It's very difficult to go to the back side of a concept and hit a timing route. Like when you're getting to the back. Yeah, when you're getting to the back side of a concept, you need to be throwing a post route, a dig route, something that's breaking over the middle of the field. And beyond that, even if you open to this side, I hate having a curl route from the slot and a comeback route on the outside because they're in line. Like now you're having to layer the throw over a slot corner to drive in a comeback route. So I think the design is really bad on this play, if I'm being honest. I'll let you talk about the thing that you want to talk about. Like you could maybe try to throw this ball to Dallas Goedert. I don't think you want that because you've got a cornerback right here that's opening up. I don't think there's really a window to throw this. Even if there is a window to throw this, I think it's quite possible that Jalen Hurts is completely blinded by the sun. But I just don't really like the design here. And I don't know where you're supposed to go with that. And so
yeah,
I do think you need to break the pocket and throw this ball away. I also would love to see like Grant Calcaterra. If you watch him, once he sits down and isn't open, I would love to see him break hard to the middle of the field. Like right now, you're not open. Hurts didn't pull the trigger. Break across the middle of the field and see if you can get open. Like he sort of jogs 2 steps later, but that's, the Eagles are bad in scramble drill. They have been for a long time. And so I don't think you necessarily expect that. It's certainly not what you're playing for, but I would put this more on design / just nobody getting open.
Yeah, I appreciate all the podcast listeners, but one of the reasons why you need to watch the video is because you just see me nodding whenever I agree with Shane. I can't help it. We don't talk about things beforehand, so it's pretty cool when we see Ice arrive because it makes me feel like I've watched it very well as well. Yeah, I had the exact same. I said he could have taken the shot to Goddard on the corner. The blame depends on if you think he had got it or not. I think he dropped his eyes early, but I said in my Bleeding Green article, which I'm pretty sure you would not have read because it published literally just before this. And we try not to talk too much about individual plays before this. The concept sucks. Like, Shane, do me a favor, just pause it at the top of Hurts drop. Get your little fancy pen out and draw a big circle around the middle of the field. You can't be running a 5-man route concept and you can't target that area. And this is not a Hurts thing. We have now seen Hurts throw to the middle of the field. So I'm sort of bored of the Hurts can't throw to the middle of the field argument now, because we know he can. Is it his best trait? No. Is he Matthew Stafford on the backside dig? No, he's not. But you can't run an offense where you're running 5 routes and you're completely ignoring that area. Like, the concept just, and to be honest, we're not coaches, but it's an easy concept to make better. Like, the most annoying thing is, Shane, you've got Devontae Smith and AJ Brown one-on-one with so much space. Run a slant flat and just literally throw AJ Brown the slant. No one's stopping him. Run a slot fade to Devontae Smith. You will never get a better matchup in that in your life. Single high safety seems to be covering the trip side. They're playing just straight up 2-over-2 in half the field. This is like college football. This is like go nuts. Run your best concept with your 2 best receivers. And they run a go and an out, and the slot cornerback's all over the out. Hurts is not a full progression, like full field reader anyway. Most quarterbacks in the NFL aren't these days. To expect him to go front side to backside in this concept is basically impossible for Jalen Hurts. Like, maybe old school Tom Brady can do this. This is not something Jalen Hurts and it's not even something you want Jalen Hurts to do. Like, I just don't like the concept at all. I think if you can't throw the out to Dallas Goedert, then there's nothing there. And there's such an obvious window here because that middle of the field, just have someone breaking in that middle of the field. When I talk about quick game and Eagles not having any quick game, this is the worst example for me because that middle of the field, AJ Brown just run a slant and run Devontae Smith on anything you want. Go, fade, post. I don't care. Just get AJ Brown cutting underneath him one-on-one and you should have a pretty easy completion. I'm not going to talk about this too much on every single video because it will get really boring. I'm just going to say it once, maybe probably per video. I am very convinced the Cowboys Stadium wrecks some of these plays, and I really do think the sun is an issue. And I will explain why for people thinking I'm making excuses for Hurts, because the next play, the one you're going to show sack 4, I am absolutely stunned that Hurts doesn't take a shot. And my only argument is that he doesn't see it, because I'll go into more detail on the next one. But so far, if you're counting at home, we're in agreement. I would say the third one is not on Hurts. It's not on protection, though. This one's on design. So far, we've got 1 on Hurts, 1 on protection, and 1 on design.
All right.
Let's move on to the next one.
Okay, let's get on to this one. Let me pop it back onto the screen here. On this one's tough because I think there's a few places Hurts could go with this ball. And so if we roll it, the first thing I want you to see is we've got a linebacker bailing off. This is going to be cover 2. We've got a linebacker bailing off the line of scrimmage that has to carry Devontae Smith vertically.
Sorry, Shane, just quickly. This is what I was talking about earlier on when I said the sequencing. This is an example of why the double mug look can be risky because this is a horrendous cover.
Yeah. And this is one I would like to see Hurts take that shot to Devontae. Now, maybe he can't see it, like you said. Maybe he's already off of it. Maybe he remembers the Saints game when he threw an interception on the opening drive against a linebacker running up the seam. And so maybe that's just a throw he doesn't want. And that if that's not the throw he wants, he does bounce to A.J. Brown next, who is clearing Trevon Diggs running towards the sideline. Like, I would love to see you put this ball on A.J. Brown. Like, it's 3rd and 17. I mean, first of all, you're not really worried about throwing an interception when you throw the ball up to A.J. Brown one-on-one with a safety. But even if you do get intercepted, like, it's at the 30-yard line. Who cares? It was 3rd and 17, right? So I think you could throw this up to Devontae Smith. I think you could throw it up to A.J. Brown. I would also just love him to get to the check down here because I think first down markers right here. I think if he puts this ball on Grant Calcaterra, there's a chance it's a first down. At the very least, you get into like that 4th and 4 from the 41-yard line where you could kick a field goal. Maybe you go for it. And so I do put this one on Hurts. I think there's a few throws that he could have made here. I would have liked to have seen him take any of those, especially on 3rd and 17.
Yeah, I'm going to be controversial. I'm going to blame this one on someone we haven't blamed it on, and it's GG and 10 just coincidence. I'm going to blame this one on Jerry Jones because this is a stadium sack, and I refuse to believe any other reason why. Shane, I've watched Jalen Hurts for years. The guy takes deep shots in the most unnecessary situations to take a deep shot ever. He'll throw deep on 4th and 2, 4th and 1. The guy doesn't care. You're telling me on 3rd and 17, the most obvious chance you will ever have just to go total screw it mode and throw it up. You've got Devontae Smith. This Cowboys coverage is awful, by the way. It's an awful, awful coverage by them. You've got Devontae Smith sprinting one-on-one down the field with a linebacker, and you've got AJ Brown running on a safety because Trevon Diggs is sitting in a zone where nobody is. You are telling me Jalen Hurts is not taking a shot to Devontae Smith or AJ Brown? Why on 3rd and 17? And he scrambles when he knows there's nowhere he can get to. The check down, I agree, but he's probably thinking 3rd and 17, sort of what's the point? I genuinely, and I'm not even being sarcastic, I'm going to blame this one on my son, because I can only assume that Hurts is just not entirely sure what he's seeing. Because even the way he runs, Shane, he just runs screw this play. He just sort of runs forward then I'm just going to fall down and take a sack. I don't really care about this play. And it's the most, you'll never get a situation where you have more of a reason just to throw it up. If you get picked off, it literally doesn't mean anything. Because as long as you throw it deep, it's not going to make a difference at all. And Jalen Hurts is not someone that strikes me as someone who cares about his statistics in the slightest or worries about that kind of thing when he's out there. So obviously this play is on Hurts, and I'm being slightly sarcastic. But I am actually genuinely going to point out that I think the sun played a role in this one, because I have no clue why someone as aggressive as Jalen Hurts would suddenly not take a shot. This probably is his favorite play ever. 3rd and 17, crappy coverage, 2 best receivers going deep. When does he not throw this ball?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get to the last one. And the last one, I don't like the design, but the protection is where I'm going to end up falling on this one. This is basically it's kind of a variation of 4 verticals where you get curl routes on the outside and you get a seam route and that bender over the middle. And so I don't like that there's nothing over the middle of the field. There's nothing that's making a break. I'm not a fan of that. Also, I feel like my primary read anytime you're going to play a defense like this is just going to be AJ Brown, either run vertical or run a comeback route. But all that aside, none of it matters because nothing opens up underneath. The Eagles handle a stunt very poorly, and Hurts takes the sack. Now, obviously the fumble is his fault. I don't think the sack is, but you're going to get Micah Parsons stunts to the inside. Maybe, I don't know if this is a stunt or he just wins to the inside, but either way, this is something that Landon Dickerson should be looking for when he has nobody to block. He should be waiting on somebody to win inside. You've got running back help on Landon Dickerson right here. There's really no reason to go triple team this guy. Just stay home, and he doesn't. And Micah Parsons gets Hurts. Sack's not on Hurts. The fumble is definitely on Hurts, though, on this one. So I don't like the design, but I'll blame this one more on protection.
Yeah, we're on the same page. All puns intended. And if you don't believe me, I literally tweeted my thoughts on every sack. Lots of deep routes, nothing open, nothing short for Hurts to check down to. Parsons beats Fred Johnson. I put bracket shock. I said the sack isn't on Hurts, but the fumble is. The only thing I would put out, Shane, is I think you said Dickerson, unless I was going mad, wasn't it Jurgens that was unblocked there? I think Dickerson's had the defensive tackle on him. And the
Yeah, no, I was saying that Jurgens doesn't really need to help Dickerson because Dickerson's already got Dickerson's already got the running back coming to help. In my mind, Jurgens should be waiting on someone to shed inside or looking for a looper. I don't think he should be going to help triple team that.
Yeah, Ben on the YouTube just commented saying, hope they get this stunt issue handled because that would kill no line. Yeah, anytime you play the Cowboys and you have 3 guys blocking the defensive tackle and no one blocking Micah Parsons, I'm going to go ahead and say it's not what you want. There's a hot take for everyone at home. But yeah, the thing is Hurts can't fumble there. And I've tried to defend Hurts a lot this year, and I think Hurts has had a really, really good past 6 weeks or so. But that fumble is inexcusable. You can take the sack. You cannot fumble there. But also, concept-wise, the Eagles ran a really good second half. First half was pretty abysmal, in my opinion, some of the concepts. It was way too aggressive again. It was way too down the field. They desperately needed just literally run the same concepts, but just run a couple of quick slants. Or run the same concept you've seen earlier on the backside, have a quick slant or something. It was just far too vertical for my liking. Anyway, we said we'll be quick today because it was a relatively nothing game, and 25 minutes in, we've spent doing 1 point, but that was good. I enjoyed that. We should have more often the blame game, especially in the moment when we take too many sacks. For those counting at home, what did we come down on then? Hurts for one of them, protection. Hurts for two of them, protection for two of them, and design for one of them. But I think design can definitely be thrown under the bus for a couple of them as well.
Yeah.
But there you go. Right. Should we move into our second point, Shane? Do you want to go or do you want me to go?
I'll let you go. I talked a lot there. I'll let you get your second point out.
There you go. Seeing as that was a big one, let's go for a very, very specific point. Let's just go for one single play. So as I am totally ill-prepared, I'm just very quickly throwing up the play I want to do. So can you take me, Shane, on my film thread to play 10? I was tempted to do this as concept of the week, but I'm going to do something on defense instead. I just want to talk about one single play. It is nothing fancy at all. It is simply an under center play action deep shot. This is the most basic NFL play of basic NFL play. You go 12 personnel, you stick your two wide receivers miles outside, you fake it like you're going to run, and you send two receivers vertically. The beauty of this is when you're winning, teams expect you to run. When you have an under center run game that includes Saquon Barkley, teams expect you to run. So when is the perfect time to call the deep shot is 1st and 10. The play is a thing of beauty, and I wrote this a lot in the article and in the tweet. I think we have got to the point now where we take for granted how good Jalen Hurts is as a deep thrower. I think he doesn't get enough mention across the national media as well. And by the way, I love this concept. There is literally nothing but two verticals. Is there even a check down, or is this literally max protect? No, there is. Barkley is just basically hovering out there, but everyone else is in max protect. The other thing about this, Shane, is I'm not a QB mechanics guy, so don't expect me to talk QB mechanics, but I do know the basics. And I know that dropping from under center like this is not something we've really seen Hurts do before. This is different to throwing a deep ball from shotgun. If you just go back and watch that second view as well, I don't want to be like a QB footwork guy, but look how smooth this is. When have you seen Hurts take a 7-step drop from under center and then launch it like this? QB school is going to be salivating when he watches this. Fake it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, launch it. The velocity, that is as good as it gets. That is in the bucket, man. I think sometimes we take this stuff for granted. We don't see Hurts do a lot of 7-step drops with a little hitch very often. That is textbook teach tape. I love that throw. I wrote this in the article. Moan we want about being aggressive, and I myself have moaned about being overly aggressive with vertical concepts, but there's a time and a place. That is how you do it. You're winning. It's the first play of a drive. You go under center. You go 2 tight ends. Defense expects a run, and then you throw it over their heads to your best receiver. I love the concept in it. I love its simplicity, and I think we need to talk more about how good Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown are at those deep shots, because that is an absolute dime. You couldn't hand it to him any better, and that is not the first time we've said that this year.
Yeah, absolutely. GGN says 7-step hitch dime. And again, we don't need to tell you AJ Brown is great at these, but AJ Brown with the late hands, it's every deep ball AJ just handles perfectly. So let me get on to my second point, which is also one play. Let's talk about the interception in the red zone. And so the Eagles are going to run 4 verticals, and 4 verticals is a concept that honestly it's designed to beat every coverage. Hold on. I should run it until the motion's set, so we're where we're going to be. So the Eagles run 4 verticals. It's designed to beat every coverage. If you are playing single high man coverage, this is where you want to throw that outside ball. Can you beat your guy off of press? Or, you're concerned about those comeback routes that AJ Brown's so good at. And so you're looking to your outside guys. If you're playing split field, 2 safeties high, you're playing zone. You can look for your seam route to bend in front of the safety. You can look for your outside route to clear the cloud corner and fit that hole shot in. And when you're against single high zone, which is what we're doing now, you're reading the middle of field safety, and you're going to throw to whichever seam he's not cheating towards. This is an inside out read. People have pointed out on this play that Grant Calcaterra is open in the end zone. Grant Calcaterra is open in the end zone because on Hurts's separation, Trevon Diggs leaves his assignment and plays somebody else. Grant Calcaterra is not open if Jalen Hurts doesn't throw the ball to Dallas Goedert. That's the issue with screenshotting stuff. Also, I've had people saying, well, he should pump fake this and then rip it outside. You don't have time. You're at like the 13-yard line. The windows are far too tight for that. You read this inside out. Grant Calcaterra is not in the progression. The one thing that is off on this play is Calcaterra doesn't threaten vertically quick enough. And so he doesn't really create the bind on Trevon Diggs that you want. But Hurts is looking at the safety here. The safety is on the opposite hash. He's rightfully more concerned about Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. And so you have this throw to Dallas Goedert up the seam. Now, this is more a great play by Trevon Diggs than it is a bad play by Hurts. And Hurts kind of bounces a little bit, and this ball needs to come out. It's just a tick late. You see the little back foot bounce there? We need to drive and throw. And so he comes out just a tick late. He's not much late. You can't throw super early because you're trying to get it over a linebacker. Like, the ball can't come out now. But now the ball needs to be out, and Hurts is still waiting. And if we look at the path here for Dallas Goedert, we need to be bringing him in a little bit. Like, you're throwing into contact here, but he throws it upfield instead of bending it in, and it gives Trevon Diggs time to come and undercut this route. So if I'm assigning blame for this play, like if I'm in the QB room putting this on the QB board for Hurts, there's some things we can do better. We don't need to bounce that leg. We need to rip it. It's just a tick quicker, just a tick further inside, and that's a touchdown. But more than anything, you're just tipping your hat to Trevon Diggs, who makes a really good play here. And maybe I would quibble with, why are we running this to Trevon Diggs' side instead of flipping it and running it to the other side where you don't have a cornerback that's such a ball hog? But that's just nitpicking. Overall, the process was fine to me. Sometimes the other guy just makes a great play.
Yeah, the great thing about the NFL and what makes top offenses is every single nuance matters. And the Eagles just get a couple of the finer details ever so slightly wrong. And in the red zone, the finer details really matter. So I think Goedert could ever so slightly cut this in more, as you mentioned. I think Calcaterra doesn't get vertical quick enough. I've noticed you've been watching some QB school because you mentioned about Jalen Hurts bouncing on his back foot. I was going to interrupt you and say, all right, JT O'Sullivan there, because I know he loves talking about the bounce. Hey,
I don't hate QB mechanics as much as you do, but I don't normally talk. I say it this way. I only talk about mechanics. I don't think mechanics matter until they matter.
Until they matter, yeah. One of them.
That's the Mark Schofield line about QB mechanics. It doesn't matter until it matters.
The OG QB expert online, Mark Schofield. The other thing I'd say is GGN10 commenting again that Diggs makes that play. It's an unreal play. Like, Diggs is so good at doing exactly that. He's not good at much else. He can absolutely get beat, but he is perfect at taking risks. And I'm glad you commented about Calcaterra not being in the progression, because if I see one more screenshot, permission to ban screenshots from Twitter. When it comes to NFL, like it just doesn't work that way. Jalen Hurts might not even read Diggs. Like, he may just assume. And in the red zone, you have to be quick with your decisions. I think Hurts will learn from that, but I don't think the process is bad. I think he's just half a tick late, and that's the biggest issue. But I also think Goedert could help him out ever so slightly by coming inside a little bit more. And it's also just a wicked play from Trevon Diggs. Right, I'm going to get around to my third point because we've been a little bit critical of Hurts and the offense in general. I'm not really going to talk about Kellen Moore's improvements too much in this game, but I will just say that I thought Kellen Moore did improve things quite a lot in this game. I think the offense got significantly better. But I think one of the biggest differences for me was the ability for Hurts to win outside of structure in this game. And this was something that I wasn't necessarily expecting, because I haven't been the hugest fan of this Eagles offense playing outside of structure. There was one throw that I don't need to show because it's pretty obvious. Most of you could remember it from the TV copy. It was the one to A.J. Brown where Hurts rolled to his left and A.J. Brown uncovered in the middle of the field, and it led to a big game. But the two I really like are actually both the checkdowns. They're my favorite two plays. Sorry, both the checkdowns, both the touchdowns. Sorry. They're the two that I really like looking at. So if you can get up play 8 and 9, Shane, we'll start with play 8 because logic. This is the touchdown to Dallas Goedert. So this is Mike Zimmer winning once again. Free rusher. On Jalen Hurts, and I believe the Eagles had no timeouts here. So if Hurts takes a sack, Eagles Twitter goes mental. But Hurts reminds you how good he can be. What I love about the way he makes this guy move, for those of you watching, is watch 2 hands on the football. What have we criticised Hurts for? And he fumbled early on in the game. And what is he making sure he's not doing now? That ball is going nowhere. That is the most strong 2 hands you've ever seen. The throw is actually really good as well. I think the velocity, the arm strength is pretty good on the move because he's sort of throwing across his body. But what I really love is what Dallas Goedert does. He realizes he's not open. He gets his eyes back to the quarterback. He gives himself a throwing window. That's good football. Like, my favorite comment to type in BGN articles always annoys people is the best out of structure is designed. And it's almost like, well, that's not the point of out of structure. I'm like, but it sort of is. You can practice out of structure. You can be good out of structure as a team. You can, dare I say, structure your out of structure plays, which drives everyone insane. But out of structure is not just like, oh my God, the quarterback's running around, panic, everyone run everywhere. You have layers to it. You want to have receivers break in certain directions. You want to make sure you've got a guy vertical. You want to make sure you've got a guy horizontal, just like you would with any other play. Just because out of structure is a relatively big phenomenon in the NFL the last 10 years doesn't mean it's bad football. It's not college football. It's not mobile quarterbacks cheating. It's part of the game. It's a huge, huge part of the game. And I don't think the Eagles have coached it well enough for a long time. I think some of that is because Hurts' instinct is to run rather than to throw. But I think this was the best out of structure Hurts game we've seen in a long time. The eyes were downfield, and he was really trying to create. And that's my favorite line. I love out of structure, structured plays. And that was one of them. And the second one, Shane, was play 9. This one's not as much out of structure. Firstly, Lane Johnson just shuts down Micah Parsons, and the protection is awesome. But this is still pretty out of structure. Like, essentially, the play is over. Hurts has held the ball for 4 or 5 seconds. And Johnny Wilson gives him a window. And this is what I want to see. Jalen Hurts doesn't try and run. He doesn't throw it away. He doesn't force it. He basically lets the play develop. But he's looking at Johnny Wilson. Did you see a little point, Shane? For anyone watching on the video, Jalen Hurts calls this. This is not a fluke by any chance. Jalen Hurts knows where the gaps are. He sees there's a huge gap to the left. He points to Johnny Wilson and then throws a strike. That is awesome. That is, again, there's structure to the out of structure play. It's not just random. It's, I can see a gap in the defense. I know where Johnny Wilson can go. And once again, this ball's got some zip on it. This is a good catch by Wilson because Hurts layers it in there from quite a short distance. When you see it from this angle, that ball is moving pretty well. And Johnny Wilson, with his size, that is a great role for him. So I thought this is one of the best out of structure games from Hurts. I think that's a really good sign because if the Eagles can do that more, I think it just adds another element to their offense. And the offense has already got pretty much nearly every element you could almost want from it. It's incredibly multiple already. We haven't even talked about the run game in this one, which, although it wasn't great, they still had some good runs at the end with QB counter bash. And Hurts did have some really good in structure plays as well. But I wanted to talk about the out of structure stuff this week.
Yeah. For some reason, you have a different end zone view than I do. I have the behind the end zone view.
It's the British magic. That's what I'll say. The British magic. Yeah, NFL Game Pass is, or sometimes I use NFL Pro, sometimes I don't. Depends how quick the film comes out. The UK one's a little bit different, so sometimes it seems to give me weird stuff. Well, I don't think I've seen this one, so
I just want to show the behind view because this is a dart. Yeah. Like, watch this throw.
Yeah, it's a better view. Yeah,
that's an insane throw and catch.
When Hurts is on it, he's really, really good. It's why I would defend him, because upside-wise, if you're telling me, even in a bad Cowboys game, I don't think he was brilliant first half. You get like 5 or 6 awesome throws in the second half. Like really, really high-level plays.
So, yeah, anyways, I just wanted to show that. I was scrambling for it because I was like, I feel like I remember slowing down that one because I thought the throw was incredible, and you had a different back view, which I find interesting now, but I wish we could always get the behind the quarterback view, by the way. But anyways, I digress. Yeah, Hurts was very good out of structure in this game. And there were more plays than just those. But time constraints. We're 40 minutes into a podcast we said would be short. So we better keep
just quickly, Shane, before you do your final point, we always recommend people watch live. You can comment. Connor commented on YouTube saying, what do you think about the check down Saquon at the 3rd of the 1? I love that he threw it. When I was on about earlier on about the offense not giving Hurts options to check down, that's what I meant. Like, they should have had that and more of the plays. That's perfectly fine. Getting through your progressions quickly and getting it to the check down is a really good quarterback play. Because if you've got through your progressions relatively quickly, you should know that hopefully the running back has some room available to him. And when it's Saquon Barkley, give the guy the ball in space. Like, perfectly fine by me. So, yeah, that was a really good play as well.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll get on to my final point on the offense, and I just want to talk about the offensive line play. I genuinely think this is one of the worst offensive line games we've seen from the Eagles in a long time. We talked about some of the sacks. I want to show you a few more plays, some in the run game on this first one, and I'll run through these really quickly so we can keep rolling. But Becton's just too slow to get to the second level and tag DeMarvin Overshown. It's also a great play by Overshown to get downhill and avoid that contact, but it just blew up a run play that should have been there, and it's just not. On the next one, you've got Cam Jurgens is going to be trying. I think he's trying to cross the face of this DT and sort of seal him out, and the guy jumps to the left, and Jurgens just whiffs, and you got another run play that's just kind of dead on arrival at the end in the backfield there. So, on another one here, the Eagles have Devontae Smith at the top of the screen. This is probably a touchdown if the protection holds up, but Hurts has to throw that far too soon. You look at it from the back view, and it's just not a good play. Like, they're going to slide, and Gainwell is supposed to be responsible for one of these guys. I think Gainwell is supposed to be responsible for number 2, but Cam Jurgens totally whiffs on Micah Parsons. And so now Gainwell's kind of got to get in the way, and like, he does a little bit. He's not prepared for Micah Parsons at this snap, and he gets in his way, and it's not a sack, but that should have been a touchdown, and it becomes an underthrow on a deep ball. So a lot of miscues. This is the touchdown that you showed earlier, this throw to Dallas Goedert. And I just think the protection's set wrong here. Like, when you look at this, it's really clear that this linebacker has to bail out into coverage. If he doesn't, the Cowboys are playing 2 over 3 at the bottom of the screen, and they're 3 over 2 at the top of the screen with a safety in the middle of the field. Like, obviously this guy has to bail out. And so I don't know why you're sliding to the left on the offensive line here. You should be sliding right. If there is a blitz, that's where it's coming from, but they slide left and you get a free runner, which is exactly what Zimmer wanted you to do. But that one's one that I felt like it was pretty clear from the pre-snap look that if pressure comes, it was coming from the right. And Hurts makes a great play and throws a touchdown anyways, but that was kind of a disaster up front in protection. And Hurts bails you out, as he tends to do sometimes. On this next one, the offensive line slides to the right, and so Saquon's going to come to the left. Now, generally, like, sometimes off of a play fake, when you're sliding left, you'll end up having this, or sliding right, you'll end up having your running back come all the way out to the end. I don't think that's what's happening here, because that seems to be who Fred Johnson is targeting. But either way, these 3 guys have to block these 3, however you're going to distribute that. And I feel like Fred Johnson sets out and then comes back in. And so Landon Dickerson sees that, and so he's going to come in and kind of try to take Gainwell's guy, but he just like throws an elbow into him instead of blocking him. And Saquon's like, oh, Dickerson's got him. I'm going to go out on a route. Oh, wait, nobody's got him. And now Hurts is just running around while we play circus music. So some poor stuff there. Jurgens ending up on the ground on a run play. It just was not a banner day for the offense. And this doesn't encapsulate the run game, which I think people could tell wasn't working very well early. But just in the passing game, Hurts was pressured on 64.3% of his dropbacks. In the previous 4 games, he was pressured on only 33.6% of his dropbacks. And so we've got a comment from Ben on YouTube asking, is that Hurts' fault for setting the wrong protections? And as far as I know, Hurts does set the protections at the line. So that one where they slide left instead of right, that he ends up breaking the tackle and throwing the touchdown, that is probably on Hurts. If he's the one calling, whoever called that protection, I mean, clearly they guessed wrong, but it should have been more than a 50-50 guess. I think you just misread that one.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm just going to jump in, Shane. I might disagree with you there. I think there is an argument that the safety could come down and play 3 over 3. I don't think it's impossible. I imagine that's one of those where, without being in the room, I've got no idea how they tell Hurts to read it. I think you could give Zimmer credit for a good call. And yeah, there's a couple of comments as well saying about GGN10 again, saying about setting protections. I mean, it's the first year he's ever done it. Anyone that doesn't think there will be a few issues is probably kidding themselves. I mean, I don't even know how much he's even attempted to do it the first few years of his career. Like, how much do you bother being involved in the meeting room for setting protections when you know it's your center doing it? So I don't know. I guess he's obviously worked on it. He's not an idiot, but I imagine this year is pretty unusual for him. I think this one was more about just some bad play rather than like issues with protections. I think sometimes they called the right protection and just got beat. And we had another comment from Rocco saying, was Fred Johnson as bad as he looked? I didn't think Fred Johnson was that bad. I thought he was okay. I don't think he was the worst player on the offensive line this week. I'll tell you that much. I thought it was more of an interior problem rather than an edge rusher pressure problem. But that was just the way I viewed it anyway.
Yeah, I thought Fred Johnson struggled, but yeah, the interior was where a lot more of the issues were, in my opinion. So,
yeah.
Okay, let's get over. Wait, that was all your offense already, right?
I'm done. Yep.
Okay, let's get on to the defensive side of the ball, and we'll make this a little bit quicker. Jonny, lead us off with your first defensive point.
I will do as soon as I read it. Right, I had loads of things I want to talk about in defense, but I'm going to start by sort of putting a big star, an asterisk. That's the thing, a big asterisk saying that Cooper Rush absolutely sucks, and a lot of this film you can throw out in the trash because they weren't playing against a professional offense. But I talk about it every week, but I really wanted to talk about Cooper DeJean and Quinion Mitchell again. Like, they're just so good for a young defensive back pairing. Like, pretty ridiculous. So let's go through a few of them. I'm only going to choose a couple of plays, actually, especially because of time and because there's a Cooper Rush again. But there's some plays when, like, I don't care who the quarterback is. It's just a good play. And then there's others where I'm like, okay, that play is helped out by the quarterback. So I'll start with play 2 on my film thread, please. Just a very simple play. It's just a throw into the flat for the Cowboys. And Cooper DeJean absolutely comes flying downhill, blows straight past the wide receiver, and blows up the play. He doesn't make the tackle in the end, but he stops it in its tracks, and then it gives enough time for Zach Ball and Nolan Smith to get across. And I love this play because of how seeing Bourne, Smith, and Cooper DeJean in the same area. I'm pretty sure 3 years ago, the Eagles barely had an athlete that good. Now they got 3 on one play. Then Quinion Mitchell made a couple of awesome plays. I'm not going to talk about the defensive play on play 3, Shane, but if you can roll play 3, because it's going to be my next point, so I won't combine the 2. I'll save it for a separate one. So ignore the defensive concept. Just watch Quinion Mitchell on this play. Like, pretty tight coverage, does not get tricked at all by the inside. This ball was actually thrown really nicely. So I said about this is one of those plays that doesn't matter who the quarterback is. I think when you see the other angle, this ball is basically thrown exactly where it needs to be. Quinion is just all over it. And I think my favorite thing about him is his use of hands at the catch point. He's really, really strong and really good at playing through a receiver's hands. And what that essentially means is he almost has his hands in between the Cowboys' receiver's hands and almost like breaks up the ball as it's in the air. Even though this is caught in the end, he ends up pressing him so far or so close to the line of scrimmage, but he doesn't really have a chance. And in my final play, I'll show really quickly because, as I said, we did go long on the offense this week, but that was the point, is play 6. They're playing standard quads here versus trips, which quads cover 4 quarters. I don't care what you call it. What this means versus trips is the Eagles' safety will read the 3 wide receiver side, which is known as a tricks call. So when you do this, you end up with a linebacker and a receiver one-on-one with the receiver and the running back. Quinion Mitchell has literally half the field to cover. So he's got to watch out for everything here. The click and close speed is great. Yes, this is where a quarterback makes a difference. The ball is slightly higher and a better quarterback who drills this in lower, and it might be a completion. But it's still a really good play by Quinion. And the back angle, once again, is the best angle if you're watching at home because he rips through. That is so good. GGN10 again saying, yeah, can make an all-pro team. Like, at the moment, he doesn't get beat. Like, he'll have to have a bad week soon. I kept thinking, like, Chase will burn him. Like, someone's going to kill him. Like, Terry McLaurin might just rinse him Thursday because no rookie cornerback just shuts down everyone every week. Like, he's going to have a bad week and everyone's going to go, I told you so. Joe Banner will be laughing. But, yeah, I want to talk about the secondary. DeJean and Quinion, just very, 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 very good. Yeah, I've got other things I could say about them, but I'll summarize it for there. Just good in pass coverage, and DeJean has made such a difference coming downhill.
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredible that you're getting the play out of them that you're getting. And I mean, I know that PFF grades aren't something we really trust anymore, but Cooper DeJean is currently the 4th highest rated cornerback in the NFL, not among rookies, in the NFL. And then Quinion Mitchell is sitting at number 32, which is way too low. But it's incredible what they've been able to do over the First half of the seaon for Quinyon Mitchell, the last 4 or 5 games for Cooper DeJean. So, okay, let me keep rolling here. I'm going to talk about another guy in the secondary, a guy that we've talked about in a negative way a lot, and I think we talk about him in a positive way in this game. And just to show you that, we're not grinding an axe against people when we're tough on them here. We're just telling you what we see. And so that's Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. He's had a rough go this year, but I thought he had a really good game in this one. And so I'll show you a few plays. The first one, it's the first play of the game, and you've got him. I circled him on the screen, but this is basically cover 3 match with the edge rusher, the nickel rushing and an edge defender dropping out into coverage. And so Chauncey Gardner-Johnson basically ends up with the running back or with the motion man fast to the flat. And I mean, he just sticks him at the catch point. That's a big hit, setting the tone on the first play of the game. We've seen him whiff on a lot of tackles, and he makes that one. And it just sets the tone right out of the gate. On the second one, he's at the top of the screen, and he crashes down on the screen. And it's a good play by other guys, too. He's the one that ends up making the tackle. And so, I thought he did a good job there. This one's strange, Johnny. I got a question for you. This is first and goal at the 6-yard line. And I want you to watch this linebacker and tell me what sticks out to you. So we've got the linebacker lined up on the hash, first and goal at the 6-yard line. Did anything stick out to you watching him on that play?
What am I seeing here, Shane? Except for the fact he comes flying downhill. What am I? I
watched this play and I was like, who is that?
Oh, is it Trotter? No, it's Oren Burks. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why Oren Burks is on the field instead of Zach Bond here.
Do you know what? Can I just say something really random? Like Oren Burks, I didn't watch much garbage time, but I watched a bit. Oren Burks made a play, and I was like, "Ooh, I think the Eagles can coach linebackers."
Yeah,
he had a play, and I was like, "Oh, okay." He celebrated big time. He let everyone know he made the play.
Yeah,
I was like, maybe this team is really good at coaching linebackers.
Yeah. But on this one, this isn't garbage time. It's 7-3 in the second quarter. This is after the Hurts fumble. And so it was a sudden change situation. So I don't know if like Zach Bond's getting an ankle taped or something like that. But Oren Burks is out here on the field, and he does a good job getting front side, plugging the hole. Josh Sweat really dives down and messes up this cutback lane. And then Chauncey Gardner-Johnson sitting right here in the cutback hole, and he wraps up the running back. And so, that was a good play for Chauncey. And then you get the interception. This is a great rep by Keely Ringo. This is going to play out like it's a split or it's a single high safety look. And so when you get that, you want to push this receiver inside because that's where you have help. And look how far Ringo pushes him inside. We're starting off just off the numbers. He carries him. Look at that. This is where we started. He carries him so far inside. And then Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, he maintains outside leverage the whole time. And then watch where Chauncey Gardner-Johnson comes from. He's on the hash when the throw starts, and he's going to make this interception well outside the numbers. So it's a great rep by Ringo. It's really good range by Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. He's a guy that I have critiqued a lot this season. He had a good game against Dallas.
I was on mute. Yeah, I think I said the same thing in my article, actually. Credit where credit's due. We're not going to hate on players for the sake of it. We don't want to hate on anyone. I thought effort was a problem last week, and I thought attitude was a problem. First play of the game comes flying downhill and hits in the flat. And I was like, maybe he knew he wasn't very good last week. Like that play signaled to me like, this guy is not great. As in he got told he wasn't great in the locker room. And Fangio probably let him know as well. I get the feeling Fangio doesn't care what he says to anyone. Ben coming in. So you have to explain this one to me, Shane, because 2010 Alabama teams is not my forte. But I'm guessing it's saying that like we've got very good depth on the bench as well. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah. I mean, that was in the era when Alabama basically had like the 2 best teams in college football. And it was their first team and their second team.
Yeah, I think you can make an argument that in previous years, Trotter and Burks might have started. I think you could argue Bryce Huff, if he was fully healthy, may play more. I think you could argue Ajomo would play more for other teams. I think Keely Ringo and Sidney Brown could be starters on other teams. Like, it's a fair comment. The defense has got quite a bit of talent compared to where they were a few years ago. Right, I'm going to go for I'm going to end with Jalen Carter because, oh my God, I love Jalen Carter, Shane. I'm going to go for a bit of a weird concept of the week. So basically, this is the concept of the week that doesn't have a name, which is cool. So shout out to anyone who loves scheme stuff, and I'm talking proper scheme stuff, who follows Honest NFL. I was DMing him a little bit because I was trying to get my head around what you would call this play, because I really like the design, but I wasn't exactly sure what to call it. And long story short, no one knows what to call it. I don't think there is a name in the Fangio playbook for it. So we've sort of made up our own name. So we're going to call it Mike Thief 1. And I'm going to explain why this play is called Mike Thief Shane. So first of all, can you get the play back up? It was the third play on the article. So the first thing to note here is the reason why I love this concept is one of the cool things about Fangio is he's unpredictable in terms of what he's doing. Now, when you look at this play, Shane, pre-snap, you think, is it going to be like, you could probably guess rotation because it does look quite man coveragey, I think, if you're being honest. Then you're probably thinking, but it could still easily be a fire zone. It could very, very easily be a fire zone blitz. Zach Bourne is on the line of scrimmage as the edge defender, and Brandon Graham is lined up next to him. That signals that Bourne could rush, but it also means Bourne could drop. You're maybe thinking one of Nolan Smith or Zach Bourne are going to drop, and one of them are going to rush. So the Cowboys are probably trying to figure out exactly what is going on. And by the way, the play doesn't actually work, in inverted commas, on this occasion, but I think it's just a cool play, and I have seen it work in the past. They ran this exact same play against the Bucks. The Kobe Dean did get home on that play. So what happens is, if you just roll it very briefly, they do the opposite to what many of you would have probably thought, because the only guy in the middle of the field, the Kobe Dean, actually rushes. And that would be quite unusual, but the reason why is that they drop both of the edge defenders, which feels a bit wacky if it was Josh Sweat and Nolan Smith, but through clever use of personnel, it's actually Zach Bourne and Nolan Smith, which becomes a lot more usual, or a lot more standard, I should say. So I really like the design. I think there's nowhere obvious to go for the ball here, which is why Cooper Rush ends up throwing it to the outside. If you're wondering why we call it what we call it, Thief is a play that Fangio runs where he essentially has both outside line or edge rushers, I should say outside linebackers. God, I'm playing Madden from 2015. Both edge rushers drop into coverage and you rush free. So Thief is a free man rush. The reason why we've added the word Mike is the fourth rusher. So it ends up actually in a almost like a cover one man style play. It ends up like man coverage. But the reason why I like it is because you get man coverage, but you get the two hole defenders as well, because of who the Cowboys leave in to block. You end up with Zach Bourne and Nolan Smith taking away anything short. There's nothing open here at all. Cooper Rush has to go outside. I think it's just a really cool concept, because I think the Eagles run a lot of like whip, where they run one edge defender and blitz the weak side linebacker through the A gap. And at some point, you're like, surely teams know that this is why it's hard to predict. I think even if this play doesn't work, it's a really, really tough play. And I think credit the Cowboys, protection does a really good job. But not knowing if Bourne's rushing, if Smith's rushing, if they're going to rush five, and then all of a sudden they drop both the edges and rush Nakobe Dean. I think it's a cool concept. It didn't necessarily get home on this occasion, but it has got home the last few weeks. And I wanted to talk about it because I think a lot of people now know to look out for whip, which is when you drop one edge and rush a linebacker. But I haven't seen many people talk about that play where they drop both edges.
Yeah, very interesting concept. And I love the way, like, you don't even have to really account for the running back because you're forcing him to stay in to block to pick up Nakobe Dean. So there's really no one in man coverage on the running back, but that's because you just blitzed at him anyways. So very interesting concept for sure. Shout out to the Honest NFL on Twitter. He's great for understanding a lot of that stuff. So,
yeah.
Okay, let me move on to my second one. This is my fault because I put up our player spotlight in the Discord and the Patreon, which, by the way, if you're listening, watching, and not in the Patreon, come check that out. You can get a free 1-week trial and you get to vote in these and chat with us in Discord, get my All-22 videos, a lot of cool stuff. Think you'll like it. But I neglected to put Jalyx Hunt in the player spotlight poll, and somebody pointed that out on Twitter. They're like, hey, I voted for Jalen Carter, but I wish Jalyx Hunt was on there. And I thought, you know what? I'm a man of the people. Why don't we talk about Jalyx Hunt? Jalyx Hunt played 25 snaps in this game. He should have been on there to begin with. And I think the reason he wasn't is because I didn't notice him a lot. Like, he didn't jump off the screen at me watching the game. And to be honest, going back and watching, he still doesn't jump out at me a lot. He made a couple nice plays, but I'll show you just kind of what his typical usage was. And so He's at the top of the screen on this one, and he's going to drop out into coverage, and that's something you see them do with him quite a bit. He was on the field for 11 pass plays, and he dropped into coverage on 4 of them. Here he is doing it again off the bottom of the screen. And, when you're a former safety turned edge rusher, that's probably something that you can be used for. And we've seen the Eagles use Nolan Smith to do that. Nolan Smith drops into coverage on 22% of his passing downs. This is a really small sample size, but Jalyx Hunt did it on 36% of his passing downs, and he's going to be better at it than Nolan Smith is. But here he is. This is the tip play. He's going to get a tipped ball that almost results in an interception for Nakobe Dean, and he just kind of bull rushes Terrence Steele, and then he's able to get his hand into the throwing lane. And so I'll show the back view on this one as well. It's not like a overly impressive pass rush move, but it's always nice to be able to bull rush as a small edge rusher and get your hand up. He deflects the ball. That's probably his most impactful play of the game. Now, this is something that I wanted to point out that is maybe nitpicky, but it's something we can talk about. The Cowboys are going to run a play fake here, and they're going to get Cooper Rush out on a little bit of a bootleg. And Jalyx Hunt's too aggressive on this. And so watch how far he goes inside there and lets Cooper Rush get outside. And that's a little thing, but we're going to nitpick the little reps here just so we can talk about him. And for context, here's Milton Williams on a similar thing. Now, this is out of pistol, and it's a lot more of a bootleg. But watch how he doesn't overcommit on that play fake. And so the situation's a little different, but here they are side by side, and you can just kind of see, like, as Milton Williams disengages versus when Jalyx Hunt disengages, Milton Williams just keeps that contain a lot better. And so that's something that he could probably work on. You're out there getting your first reps really of significance, and you want to make a play. But I'll end on one here where I think he makes a really good play in the run game. He's on the left of the screen, and he's going to set the edge. We've seen Josh Sweat attack inside so many times against a run coming his way and lose contain. We've got the arms locked out, weights on the front of our feet. We're setting this edge. If you come outside, we can disengage and get you. And then he disengages to the inside and makes the tackle anyways. That's like picture perfect how you want to play a run coming at the edge like that. So shout out to Jalyx Hunt. He plays 25 snaps, 14 run defense, 7 pass rush, 4 in coverage. He had a pressure. He had a run stop. He had a pass breakup. All in all, I think it's a good, when you get a guy out there like that and you just don't notice him as a negative, as a day 3 rookie, or he was day 2, he was 3rd round, whatever. When you don't notice him as a negative in his first reps, that's probably a good thing, but he made some good plays too. So I'm interested to see how much of that is a function of Bryce Huff being hurt and how much is he's just going to start getting more snaps.
Yeah, I said this to you off air, but I've already watched the full press conference, but I watched Fangio, and I try and watch him because he's very honest. He made it very clear that Bryce Huff's hurt. Very clear. If you go and watch the video, don't just read the quotes. He was very much like, Bryce Huff is not playing as much because he is injured. He has a cast on his hand. It's a problem with his thumb, blah, 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 blah. I'll present this controversially, but Bryce Huff had the best Eagles pass rush move I've seen in a long time from an edge rusher. So I'm not fully done with him. I think Jalyx Hunt will probably play a little bit less than he did this week. But then again, Thursday's a short turnaround. He looked fine. Like, for a 3rd round pick, the expectations are sort of low because he's such a project. Like, if this was a 3rd round receiver and he was getting like 20 snaps a game by week 9, we'd be like, what's going on? But because he's a project, I accept it. He moves very well in space. Whether he's ever going to be a pass rusher, I don't know. But the athletic tools are obviously there. It's going to be cool to see him play more and more and more. Right, I'm going to finish up on my final one, Shane. I am starting to come around to the opinion that the Eagles have like 2 all-pros at their position. Zach Ball and Jalen Carter. We spoke about Zach Ball probably too much of late. Oh my God, he was good again. Like, he's good. But I will say, I think some of his reps are better and his life is made easier because Jalen Carter is playing in front of him. And Fangio spoke about Jalen Carter as well. We said he's getting better with his hands, his technique, his leverage. Jalen Carter is actually just balling out, like balling out. And it's not turning up in the sacks yet. So national media aren't talking about it. He's not had that like random 3-sack game. He's doubled all the time. And his run defense is getting to the point of like absurd. The Eagles' improvements in the run defense, I'm pretty sure, is half just Jalen Carter not slanting and just absolutely nailing this gap and a half technique that Fangio has been talking about. We do have some comments coming through, and I'm going to speak about a few of them at the end, but I'll just get into Carter first. First one I'll show is number, I think it's number 5 on my film threads. Number 5 is Jalen Carter. This is one of my favorite ones. This is him against rookie center Cooper Beebe, who I liked pre-snap. This is, I don't know if you use this phrase, Shane. Is this an American phrase, man versus boys or men versus boys?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Like we say all the time in like football over here, when you get a big athletic English football, like team against like a bunch of little kids or little people, should we say. And you just dominate them like they're not the equivalent to you. This is like easy. Like this isn't breaking a sweat. He's staring at the running back the whole time. That club move he has is absolutely ridiculously powerful. He moves guys. Like BB's with him and then suddenly he's just not there. Like if you could like pause it half a second before he's blocked and half a second later, the guy's just not there. Like he's so dominant one-on-one. The Cowboys basically couldn't block him one-on-one in this game. They had to double him, which is why I mentioned about Zach Bourne. My favorite rep is clip 7. And I will just show, I think, 2, in fact, just probably one more. I'll make this the last one because honestly, there are so many clips that I could show that are so similar to this. But this is 2 reasons I like this. Number 1, Jordan Davis shoves the tackle and completely annihilates him and ends up closing the gap in the middle of the field, which is pretty cool. So there's no gap there at all. But we spoke about Fangio before wanting his team to play gap and a half. And I've mentioned what gap and a half is before. It's not fully 2 gapping. Basically, by having 2 high safeties, you need someone to cheat a gap. And if everyone plays a gap and a half, you can basically, the math adds up and you can cheat a gap. So you still have a gap yourself, but then you play this like gap and a half technique. And if you just go back, Shane, to that play really quickly, if you just look as Carter, as the running back is running, are you going to show me the other side of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. He has got his head inside perfectly. It's perfect technique. So he's got his head in. So if he does go through the A gap, he's there and waiting, but that's not actually his gap. That's like the help. That's his gap now when he runs into his left arm. And the strength, he is in total control of that battle. Like the guard thinks he has a go at him. He doesn't. He's just standing him up, waiting for the running back to run by him. He's getting better and better. The last month, he's been exceptional. I think he's going to have a game where he gets like 3 sacks and then the national media are going to go, oh my God, Jalen Carter's amazing. But he is everything I hope from this year. The pass rushing hasn't fully taken off yet. I think some of that is because the Eagles haven't really got another dominant pass rusher along the line. So he is getting doubled a lot. But he's just so freakishly athletic and so dominant. Before I let you finish up, Shane, a couple of comments coming in. Oh, actually, no, one really main one about Huff's disconnect with the team. Yeah, I didn't think he celebrated a great deal either. I think that's a fair point. I don't know if that was just like frustration, though. Loads of players do that where they don't play. And then when they do play, they do something good. There's almost like the arrogant, like, see, this is how good I am. So I don't know. It might not be frustration, but I'd expect him to be frustrated. He signed for a big money contract. He's currently playing less than he's ever played in the past 3 years. It also hasn't been productive. If he wasn't frustrated, I'd be surprised. I don't think it's dead for him yet. I think the early down stuff, we may have figured out that it's not his game, but that does not have to make him a bust. If he can still play on 3rd down and rush a quarterback, you'd pay a fortune for that anyway. And that
he had 2
was the best
he had
thing.
2 really good pass rush moves in this game.
And last week he barely played and he still had a good one. So I'm going to take Fangio at his word and think that he is injured right now. And I'm going to think we might see it creep back up because he has shown something as a pass rusher the last few weeks.
The reason I switched over to the back view on this one is from the back view. I think it's so cool. You can watch Jordan Davis just one hand, like sends the tackle flying. And so that's funny. And then you see Jalen Carter just stick out one arm and it's like he clotheslines the running back. And I thought that was really cool to see. And then you mentioned the pass rushing. I do just want to show one clip of him pass rushing because he just destroys like 7-time All-Pro Zach Martin. And unfortunately he trips, but he's one-on-one with a 7-time All-Pro and he just clubs him to the side. Like this stuff is there every time he gets one-on-ones. You just don't have a chance. Unfortunately, he doesn't get a lot of those one-on-ones. So like you said, hopefully we'll see those more coming down the pipe as the Eagles edge rushers really start to pick up.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll get into my last point, and this one kind of looks ahead. It's something I don't do a lot in this game, in this podcast, but we're going to look ahead a little bit to Thursday night because the Washington Commanders run screens at the 5th highest rate in the NFL with the 9th highest success rate. Ball comes out fast, ball comes out horizontal. The Eagles have been so good defending screens. And so I just want to show 3 plays, and we've talked about some of them in other aspects, but this first one, so much good happens on this screen. First of all, you get Reed Blankenship, that's not Reed Blankenship. You get Cooper DeJean flying downhill. You've got Nolan Smith retracing. You've got Zach Bond coming over. You've got guys running from every area. Nakobe Dean's there. Like, Cooper DeJean makes contact but doesn't make the tackle, and Nolan Smith makes it. But if Nolan Smith doesn't make it, you've got Nakobe Dean there. Heck, you've got Jalen Carter all the way outside the numbers, ready to make a tackle. Like, that's crazy. Watch Jalen Carter lined up over the center here on this screen pass. Oh, it's a screen. Let me sprint all the way outside the numbers to be involved in the play. And none of it matters because Nolan Smith recognizes it quickly too. So that's going to be really important when you play a team like the Commanders on Thursday night. Here it is from the back view. You just guys swarming to the football. The second one, this time it's Zach Bond that flies downhill quickly, and he's going to get there. He doesn't make the tackle, but Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's flying there. You've got Jalen Carter sprinting to this screen again. Like, look at Jalen Carter. He's outside the opposite hash. And then he's getting outside the other hash to where he's in a position to make a play. This is your superstar player. That's the best player on your defense, playing a lot of snaps at a position where it's really easy to get tired out, sprinting after 2 screens. And then you've got, on the next one, you get Brandon Graham. And Brandon Graham is just going to, I forgot I showed the back view of this one. We'll let that play out. But then you get Brandon Graham on the last one here. And Brandon Graham's just a savvy vet. And he sniffs this screen out. Boom, we're there. And we're in on that tackle. And so you're going to see screens on Thursday night because the Commanders are really good at them. I think the Eagles are going to be up to the challenge of slowing that down. So that was my last point. I just wanted to talk about how the Eagles defend screens.
Yeah, I didn't actually do this point, but one of my points was going to be the Eagles covering the flat, which is basically similar. I don't know, man. Fangio's defense have been accused of being passive, and I've accused him of being passive in the past. But I think when you know you're good as a defense, it gives you an arrogance, and you just play hard. The team's just playing hard. There was a play in this game. I don't know if you saw it. I was going to tweet it, but I didn't. Where I think it was Jordan Davis and Milton Williams, and one of the defensive tackles made a tackle, and Jalyx Hunt just came storming in and crushed him as he was on the floor. And I was like, it could be unnecessary roughness, but yes. I think he's hit him just before he's gone down, so it's fine. And there's a lot of those plays on film, just like the we're angry and we're good type plays. And I watched that and I was like, yeah, this team is aggressive. But yeah, I think that will wrap it up, Shane. I think that'll wrap it up for an hour 12 on a game that the other team had no quarterback is pretty good even by our standards.
Yeah, especially since we were messaging on Monday. You're like, man, this film is brutal to watch, but very boring film. And somehow we just waffled on for an hour and 12 minutes about it.
I quite enjoyed the offense because there was a lot of stuff to watch weirdly. But yeah, the defense was like, they're too good for this, which is nice to say in some ways.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is going to do it. Thank you, everyone who is joining us live here. I will mention, if you normally watch on Twitter, Twitter's been doing a weird thing with links where it tweets a link that doesn't look like a video. So make sure you are subscribed on YouTube if that's your thing. We're on YouTube at Eagles Pin Pull. You can also go to Twitch, twitch.tv/halfandhalf, HAFF. We also live stream to those places, and you can get notifications when we go live in case you're missing that on Twitter. That's a Twitter issue. It's nothing we can do to fix. I've talked to StreamYard. So it's a Twitter thing that's not fixable. So hopefully you guys are able to catch us live. If not, certainly hope you enjoy the audio versions, the podcasts, all those things. Make sure you stay tuned in to all of that. And be sure you go check out our Patreon, patreon.com/ontheshane page. I think there's a lot of cool content there that you guys will enjoy. So that's going to wrap it up for this week. We will catch you guys next week, probably on Tuesday again, to recap the Commanders game. So, Jonny, I saw you unmute. Did you have something else you wanted to say?
I was going to point out that, if you are watching live, we'll probably do Tuesday next week as well. That was all. But you covered it. You beat me to it. So there you go.
All right. That's going to do it. We'll catch you guys next week.